Hello, everyone. Good morning. We're here for an early morning at the Moira Press. Why are we here so early? Well, Ana Isabel lives in, where is it? London?
Yep, just on the outskirts of London.
Okay, interesting. So I don't even know you, so I have to do the getting to know you thing. So how long have you been an astrologer?
Well, now, that's a long time. I reckon over 30 years now.
Oh, wow. And how did you get into astrology?
So I got into astrology because my partner introduced me to it. And I was, I think, at that point about 18. So I've been doing astrology for over 30 years, but I've been working professionally for about 20.
Is that what you do full time? Or
It is, as well as being an analytical hypnotherapist. So, yes, the two.
Okay, interesting. And that's what we're going to talk about today is the melding of hypnotherapy and astrology. So, okay, so interesting. And let's see, how long have you been a hypnotherapist then?
Uh, that would probably be about 13, 14, 15 years, something like that.
Okay, okay. And do you have formal astro training or what? How did you actually learn it? I mean, it sounds like you had a partner, but did you go to school or anything like that?
Um, yes, I have done some courses in various places, but primarily I just read tons. I read tons and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. So, yes.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I was introduced to you through Kepler. What is your affiliation with Kepler?
So I have a channel on YouTube called Life Astrologer, and that channel is dedicated really for me to interview astrologers.
Mm-hmm.
And I have interviewed a number of astrologers who are teaching at Kepler, including you. So that's how that happened.
Oh, interesting. So you just for fun, I suppose, or for I don't know. It's all astrology, but so you interview just astrologers about anything and everything kind of thing on your show.
Yeah, and I mean, I have amazing astrologers on Stephen Forrest. So the aim is Melanie Reinhardt, another one.
Hmm.
There's so many,
Hmm.
um, but the aim of the channel is to explore all different facets of astrology.
Hmm.
So sometimes, I'll be talking about very specific and old predictive techniques, um, like perfections. We had somebody talking about perfections a couple of weeks ago, and then next week I'm going to be talking to somebody about Ferraria. So you can have these obscure traditional predictive techniques one week, or then we could be talking about evolutionary astrology, or astrocartography, or anything, including what we were talking about, which was the remedy and
Hmm.
how we can find the remedy. So I think that insatiable curiosity is what drives me.
Hmm.
And so when we're looking at astrology, there are just so many ways of doing astrology. Horary, another one, so it's a lovely thing to do, to be able to speak to so many different astrologers
Hmm.
about so many different aspects of astrology.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so true. I love making YouTube. Like for example, I'm meeting you today, and I'm learning. It's funny because people think we do it for the views, but I actually do it for the experience of talking to the person in the room. Like I love it. So tell me, you interview all these kinds of astrologers. What kind of astrologer are you? Do you have a certain philosophy behind your work, or?
Yeah, so I would say that primarily I am a psychological astrologer. And I work with my clients to help them to better understand themselves. But I cannot say that I'm exclusively, what you would call a psychological astrologer, because at the same time I'm also doing karmic astrology. And so, there's evolutionary astrology that comes into it. And it's the same when I'm teaching. I will be bringing in a more rounded experience for my students, because I will bring in different branches of astrology to widen their understanding and experience of the subject. So although I am, I don't know, it's very difficult. I would say I'm a psychological stroke, karmic stroke, evolutionary astrologer. And I also, of course, as part of that, I do produce forecasts for my clients, but the forecasts are not long term. They're within the span of a year, because the whole point of it is to help them understand what is going on in the moment and how to harness the energies of the moment to bring healing and inspiration to them.
Hmm. Interesting. Um, well, it's funny because I think remedy astrology is in some ways psychological, in as much as we are trying to remedy the psychological states, but it's also physical. Like sometimes we do physical. Not that this show's about me, but I was just thinking about how what you do seems very much along the lines of what we do at the Moyer Press, which is all types of healing or helping people psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. And I think so when you say karmic astrology, I've never really heard anyone use that term. Is that, I mean, I know that the evolutionary uses the nodes, and so that's kind of on the
So,
karmic side of thing. What is karmic astrology?
evolutionary astrology would be looking at the nodes, but also at Pluto as being extremely important. Karmic astrology is a little bit looser. It's the same notion in the sense that you're looking at the soul's purpose and you're understanding the soul's purpose. But we are also using the moon, and we are looking, of course, the lunar nodes, that's a given.
Hmm.
But it's looking also at other planets, planetary placements from a karmic perspective. Although, really and truly, if you're an evolutionary astrologer, you are not specifically only going to exclusively look at the lunar nodes and the moon and Pluto. You are going to look at things like the moon as well. Diva Green, Jeffrey Wolf's granddaughter, has written a book, an evolutionary astrology book, precisely about the moon in evolutionary astrology and the role that she plays. So there's all these different branches, and really what I'm saying is they all have validity, and it's different tools for different purposes. That's the key. But ultimately, my work always is going to be about the individual finding a way towards clearing any blocks that exist within themselves, conflicts within themselves, be they to do with past lives or present life. And sometimes I'm doing it exclusively through astrology, but then I might be working as as an analytical hypnotherapist, or even a past life regressionist, of course.
Hmm.
Um, so all of that is about healing. And ultimately, I think for me, what I want is to help my clients find meaning in their lives, because this is crucial um, for mental and emotional and spiritual health. They all have to be aligned. There is a spiritual self that we need to be looking after too,
Hmm.
and that means that I am also encouraging my clients to find their spiritual growth as well.
Hmm. Have you ever heard of teleology?
No, tell me about that.
Well, okay, so it's the ancient Greek philosophy on which astrology was created. Like, you
Oh,
know,
of course, yeah.
so teleology looks at the development of humans into themselves, or the development of things into themselves. And What I really like about what you're saying with karmic astrology is that teleology looks at like every planet as evolutionary. Like they say, every time a Jupiter hits one of your planets, you're supposed to have a new heartfelt longing and like grow out into that part of you. And they're constantly looking at the evolution of a human into basically it's a study of mega manifestation of like how can you manifest everything in your chart to the nth degree. And I think what you're describing in karmic astrology is the closest thing I've heard to teleology in the modern day. And what I find is a little bit lacking in evolutionary is they look at a few points as being karmic or being this thing we're supposed to develop into, and teleology would look at the whole chart as such. And I think that sounds very much like what you're doing. Now, I don't mean to interrupt our interview, but your mic is kind of scratchy. I don't know if you something happened and it started scratching, and I don't know if you moved or if you changed
No,
anything.
I am nowhere near my mic. Actually, my
Okay.
hand is completely off, so I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Well, we can just leave it alone. Okay. Um, I have to know what your sun, moon, and rising are.
So I am a Taurus. I have the moon in Capricorn, and I have Virgo rising.
Oh my God, triple Earth. That is crazy. What is your Mercury?
It's in Gemini.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, because you don't seem like, because if you were that earthy, I would imagine a little bit more of a more slow vibe. But I feel like the Mercury in Gemini is quick, so that makes sense. Because okay, so all right, so let's talk about hypnosis and astrology. How do you like? When do you know to use hypnosis in astrology?
Okay, so actually, it's fairly simple in some respects because my practice is kind of divided into two. So some people come purely for readings.
Mhm.
Sometimes when they have a reading and we are highlighting, where the wound lies, for instance, they might then decide that we're going to do some more work together to help, and that's where the regression work comes in. So then that's fine. Others come for hypnosis, for hypnotherapy, and uh, for them, um, I always have the chart anyway. So the if you look at the chart, I'm sure everybody knows it's a fantastic diagnostic tool.
Mm.
And so when clients come and it's not an astrology reading, it's straight to therapy, that map that the chart provides helps me very quickly to pinpoint where it hurts. And the thing about therapy is that you need to allow the client to speak. And this is where it's different. As an astrologer, people want to hear what we have to say. And even then, if it's to be a therapeutic experience, we also have to listen to them. So
Hmm.
there's an element of initially they might want to hear what we have to say so that they get a measure of the fact that we know what we're talking about, and then they can trust us and they can tell us their experience, and then we can go from there. But with therapy, it's the other way around. I have to listen. Um, they're the ones who are going to be doing the talking for a good chunk of the first part of the session. And my job is to then ask questions to help them to reflect and to clarify before we can decide which way the regression is going to go. What question are we trying to answer? So the chart is brilliant for that because it helps me to see where the questions that I need to be asking. Because sometimes people are a little bit reluctant and they're either reluctant because they've kind of given up hope that anyone's going to help them, or they're reluctant because they are carrying deep shame and they don't want to reveal things. And the lovely thing about the chart is that it shows me all of that. And
Mm.
so I'm not going to go in there and say, yeah, the problem is this, this, and this. I'm going to very gently ask questions to
Mm.
help peel back what's underneath the reason why they're with me.
Mm.
And then I let them speak. But the wonderful thing about being able to ask the right questions is not just because it gets me to where we need to go quite quickly. It's also because by asking the right questions, they also get a tremendous sense of being heard or understood. Because if you ask the right question, they're going to go, yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I need to be asking, or what I need to find the answer for. That's exactly what I don't know. Somebody is putting her finger on exactly the nub of the matter. And so you're building trust, and trust is, there are two things that are extremely important in determining the outcome of therapy. The first is the desire to change. So that's the client.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the second is trust.
Mm.
And it doesn't matter whether you're a doctor, a therapist, whatever it is, if the trust is there, then the outcome is much more likely to be successful, as in the person benefits from the therapy being provided. So that's a huge, huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be able to, I find that having the astrology there is very, very helpful. And also, if you're looking at, you can do it in a number of different ways, because you can also have you can automatically know what transits the person's going through.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you can see very quickly whether the person is open to change, or whether they think they want to change or they're not quite ready for it,
Mm.
and what's holding them back, what are they afraid of in this moment in time, and how it relates back to the past.
Mm.
So you've got that dynamic there, but you also have something else that's very useful as a tool. You can also have the consultation chart.
Mm. Wow. What's that?
So the consultation chart is the chart that you draw for the moment when you meet your client.
Hmm. And what
And
does that show you?
it shows you everything, because even without the birth chart, you know who you are, you know who the person is. It shows you if there are any limitations. So it's the same, these are, rules that are like the rules for horary. So
Mm.
it shows you immediately, are there any limitations here to me? Am I blinded? Am I going to have am I going to have a bias? Am I going to is this person going to respond to me or not? But also, crucially, it tells you where the person's at and the nature of the concern that they're bringing. What is it that is foremost in their minds at this moment in time? And crucially, too, it will point to your favorite bit, the remedy,
Hmm.
because it will show not only your power as an astrologer or a therapist to help bring something to this session, or and it will also show you the remedy. So what is the remedy here?
Mm.
And that's really helpful, because if I'm using visualization to reinforce something, yes, I will have a sense from my client already, because I will have asked them whether perhaps what their favorite places are, so that we can build up really nice pictures where they can feel quiet and happy and relaxed. I can ask them, for favorite scents, for favorite sounds, so that I can build a picture. I have a sense of the imagery that I can use that's going to work for them.
Mm-hmm.
But it might be that there's something they haven't said or that I haven't spotted that's going to be really useful at this moment in time.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And that consultation chart gives me that clue.
Mm. Interesting.
So all of it is building up a picture, which then listening to my client, I can put it together to create something that is going to be truly beneficial for them
Mm,
when I'm creating the visualization part
mhm,
of it. So I have the what questions am I asking? What direction do we need to be going in terms of the regression? And the consultation chart can help with that too, because it tells me what's on their mind at this moment.
mhm,
But also, is there more that I can do to enhance the visualization part? Because that's the therapeutic tool
mhm.
to bring healing or to reinforce the positives that have come from the regression work.
Interesting. Now, there is someone watching. If you have any questions for Ana Isabel about hypnotherapy and astrology, please pop them in the chat. I'm okay. So I'm stuck on this concept that you said that, which I thought was groundbreaking, which is that astrologers are thought to be content creators. Like, we come into a reading and we say this is what we see and all this kind of stuff. But you're kind of using this questioning method as astrotherapy, and I've never really heard that distinction of, I think a reading is different than being kind of therapeutic in your approach. And then, it makes me think of Socratic, being a Socratic professor, which is like the art of asking good questions is what's, Socratic teaching is all about. And it's like, I agree with you that a question hits harder than a statement. Like, it like moves the person to think, feel, learn something about that. So now, do you have sessions that are, here I'm doing a reading, and then sessions where here I'm doing therapy, or do you
Right.
mix
Yes.
those in the same session? How does that work?
So it just depends. If somebody's coming for a reading, that's what the session's for. If somebody's coming for therapy, that's what the session's for.
Um,
However, and some people will not even be interested in astrology if they're just having therapy. And the astrology never comes into it as far as they are concerned. It's there for me.
uh-huh. Oh,
Okay.
interesting.
It's there for me. It's my guide.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Uh-huh.
But if they are open to astrology, then I can bring in what I'm seeing. And that is also useful because they get these little light bulb moments just that little bit more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But for most of my clients, astrology doesn't come into it if they're coming for therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It's my tool, it's what I use to
Mm-hmm.
help me be more effective in helping them.
It makes me think of this lesson that I always teach my students. I'm like, there's two parts to doing astrology. One is looking, and then one is conveying. And so it's like, I think we always, young astrologers always think that like you have to convey everything you see in a chart. And actually, the skilled professional like is doing what you're doing, which is in some cases you're looking and conveying what you see, but in other cases, in these therapeutic cases, you're looking and you're using all that data, and then you're conveying it in a very different way. You're not even speaking astrology language, and like that is groundbreaking to young students that you could do that. But yeah, I think that's a really wise approach. Now I want to circle back to remedies for a second in hypnotherapy. So okay, recently in our Tuesday group, we've been talking about how it's different to remedy something for short duration versus long duration. Like, if you have Mars conjunct Saturn by transit, you could take ibuprofen because it's a week long transit. But if it's Saturn conjuncting your Mars and it goes on for a year, you can't really like take ibuprofen for that because it's going on. So my question for you as a hypnotherapist is, how would you use hypnotherapy for a short duration transit versus like a very long duration transit? And yeah.
That's different because this is so typically my clients see me once a month
Oh, okay.
and it's not one session. So this is not one session is not going to shift a huge number of layers. One session will help shift a layer.
Hmm.
So, and people ask me, how many sessions will I need? Well, I never know because everyone's different. The context, so the situation that they're bringing is different. The complexity of the situation differs.
Hmm.
And also their receptivity differs.
Mm.
So some people are more receptive than others. So who is more receptive? People who have tremendous imaginations, or good imaginations, and can really be vividly experiencing everything in hypnosis, really progress quite quickly. We can shift things quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even have to be in a very deep trance, because their imaginations just take them there very quickly, and it's real and it's done. Okay. On the other hand, there are others who are more resistant from the point of view that they'll question, or they'll dismiss everything that they're seeing or experiencing.
Mm.
And that is a barrier that we need to work to overcome.
Mm.
So it depends on how many barriers the person already has in terms of their receptivity. So if somebody is able to relax and use their imaginations really well, this is really powerful, because then they can imagine themselves looking at the situation that is the sensitizing moment that leads to the problems they're having. They can imagine it in different directions, looking at it from different perspectives, and reframe it and feel differently about it quite quickly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Others are stuck in the feeling, can't get past that feeling so easily, and I have to work harder to help them to bring in other perspectives and shift the feeling. And so the deeper the person can go into it, or can put it a different way, the more intensely they can connect
Mm.
with that memory in an imaginative and creative way, the quicker it's going to be. And so very often I will be checking in with clients, in the next session, and I'll say, so last time we worked on this,
Mm.
how's it for you now? And it's like magic that they actually, something that could have been troubling them for about 20 years, they've forgotten was an issue,
Wow.
because it's so gone. But there are other things. Then you remove one layer and then you find another. So I
Mm.
can say that typically maybe people might have 7 sessions.
Mm.
Others need less,
Mm.
others need more. Again, depending on the complexity. And the other determining factor here is whether the person is still experiencing problems in the present. So let's just say that it's a relationship with a parent, or with a sibling, or a partner. That's a live situation. So that person that caused the initial sensitizing event, the parents say, is still in their lives. And maybe the relationship has changed. So if the relationship has changed, it's easier to move on from that. But if the parent is still behaving in the way that caused the first problem,
Mm-hmm.
then it's much harder, because it's like the wound keeps getting reinfected.
Mm. Mm.
So we need to actually find a way to have the courage to maybe take a break from that relationship,
Mm-hmm.
get stronger, and come back to it.
Mm.
So it's everything. It's very complex, and it takes time. So the transits can determine whether the transits can speak of how much support the person is getting in their efforts. So
Mm.
if they're going through a Jupiter transit, I can see that they're in an ideal situation, perhaps, to support their healing.
Mm.
Or if it's a Neptune trine or something, I can see that there's support here. Or if it's a constructive Saturn transit, it's good. They're going to get what they need to get through this.
Hmm.
Um, if, on the other hand, they're in the middle of a Pluto opposition or a Pluto square or a Saturn square, it's good from the point of view that we're going to go really deep, but it's going to be slower
Hmm.
because there's a lot of angst that needs to come to the surface that's been buried. And maybe they're right in the throes of a very difficult relationship, which makes it harder to get get to where we need to go. So you see, it's not so much in the same way as if we're looking at a physical remedy. This
Hmm.
is this is therapy, which takes longer.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, this is really interesting. It's really pertinent to my life because I had a relationship I had to let go of that I am reconvening with today. And it's been maybe a year. And I love what you were saying about how you can go out and become stronger and then go back in. Because I'm like, oh, I'm going in, let's go. Like, and I'm ready to try again, you know? And like some people would think I'm crazy for doing that. But I think what you're saying is really important is like I really didn't want to be reinfected with the toxicity of that connection over and over again at some point. And I can see where if you're trying to heal the wound, it would be like somebody drinking alcohol and then you're trying to heal the wound, and then they drink more alcohol and you're trying to heal the wound, and it's like they're like poisoning themselves and you're trying to heal the wound, and it's like that's so different if somebody stops poisoning themselves and then you can like heal their wound, you know. So I think you bring up an extremely good point there is how effective any remedy will be dependent on does the person keep poisoning themselves with a certain issue, problem, substance, etc. And I think as healers sometimes we can get fatigued to the point where like listen, if you keep drinking whiskey, you know, pint of whiskey every day, like I'm not going to try remedies on you because you really are, you know. But in your case it sounds like in those situations you're kind of trying to tweak the thinking even though there is some kind of situation still being face. It's like you're just gonna go in and try to hypnotize them to tweak their thinking. I mean, it probably all depends on each situation. Sorry, you said a lot there. The other thing I wanted to say is as far as like being susceptible to hypnosis and hypnotherapy, I really think that has a lot to do with the chart. Like for example, I quit smoking with hypnotherapy and I was like done. I was like 4 hours hypnotherapy. I was like bye Felicia on cigarettes, and people are like, how did you do that? And I'm like, well, I have a moon square Neptune, and I think I do everything through manifesting and visioning, and hypnotherapy is this kind of vision shaper, you know, remedy. And I think for me I was just that's where I live is in this kind of Neptune realm. And so I think for me hypnosis is probably the best remedy out there. And so I wanted to ask you, um how much do you think a person's Neptune natally has to do with their susceptibility to hypnosis?
Uh, I would say Neptune is my best friend and ally in this context. Because somebody comes in with Mercury in Pisces, we're going to have a great time. Everything is going to be quick, especially if they're Piscean as well, Moon in Pisces, yes. Um, on the other hand, there is a downside to this, is that we all know about Neptunians' predilection to escapism.
Mm,
And so getting them to be honest about themselves might be a bit of a challenge. And so I might have to, so in that respect, in the sense of being open and and being able to use the imagination, yeah, that's where they live, and we can go there, and it's brilliant. But I have to be very wary as well that they, if they are wedded to an ideal of what it means to be good, a good person, they are going to avoid revealing anything to themselves. And that can hold us back.
interesting. Interesting. You know, I'm also thinking of this guy I know who's a triple fixed chart. He's a Scorpio Sun, Taurus Moon, Leo rising. And like he takes years to change on anything. Like I've been trying to change his mind. I don't even want to go into it, but like I can imagine he needs like 30 hypnosis sessions to like change his mind. I think there are charts that are really more like mutable or susceptible to changing your framework, and then ones that are really fixed, and that's how they're designed, right? Like,
Yes,
so do you find that as well?
yes and no, because the thing about the advantage of working with fixed signs is that that is true until the moment they decide they want to change. At which point that fixed energy is focused on change.
Oh,
And then they can move lightning fast. So, somebody with Mars in Taurus or, Mars in a fixed sign, in terms of decision making, it may take them forever to make a decision. But once that decision is made, you watch. It's other people may well be shocked by how fast they move. And then if you try to dissuade them, of course they're going to dig their heels in. They've thought about this forever. Okay.
oh,
They've got it all worked out. And now you're telling them that actually it'd be really nice if you didn't do this or if you did something else. No. You're going to have a really strong argument to get them to change their minds.
hmm.
So I'm talking about Mars, obviously, because Mars is about action and the decision making process. But fixed moons can take a lot of shifting. I think in this context, it's the fixed moons because fixed moons, getting them to change their feelings about things, that's challenging. And anybody living with a fixed moon will know,
Hmm.
either themselves or living with somebody else with a fixed moon will know that everything, because everything hinges on how we feel,
Hmm.
a fixed moon, I would say it's almost like something happens and the feelings get frozen in time.
Hmm.
And then everything else stems from that, which is true for all of us.
Hmm.
But for a fixed moon, it's like it's just there. And it's really much harder to bring in different perspectives. Yeah, but I feel this, and we're back to square one again. So it's much harder.
Mm, interesting. So speaking of Mars, I was curious how you would use hypnotherapy for somebody who has a really strong Mars, like maybe they have like Mars and Aries conjunct the Moon, conjunct Pluto. I mean, it's being crazy here, but like just like somebody who has like a Mars problem, like an anger problem, or they're just like punching things. Like, what would hypnotherapy help in that case?
So I think the thing about it is that um, it's you're working. The person has come for help. And so they're asking for help in a particular context. So if they're coming because, and this is not uncommon, that somebody comes because people are fed up with their temper and they want to. So the question is, why are you angry? And the
Mm,
thing that you're not saying is you're wrong to be angry. In fact, very often they're justifiably quite angry. Sometimes it's not them, it is the other people who are provoking as
mm,
well.
mm-hmm,
Okay. So if you've got a strong Mars, then you may quite simply be expressing yourself, but people around you don't appreciate the fact that you're being authentic and expressing yourself.
mm,
What you need to understand is why they've got a problem.
mm,
On the other hand, it may be that there's a better way of expressing your anger.
mm,
So I think it's really important that we do that, that we have that conversation about, okay, so what happens when you're angry? It may be that you need to learn to count to 10,
mm-hmm,
or it may be that they just don't appreciate the fact that you're doing your own thing. And that when you tell them you're doing your own thing, they're reacting. So what are they reacting to? What are you reacting to? What is this cocktail that's going on between you?
mm,
To understand that. So having a strong Mars is not a barrier. to therapy of any kind. Um, it always requires self-reflection and understanding, and that's my job, is to help you to do that and to understand why you're experiencing this frustration. A strong Mars may well not need help with anger,
Hmm.
actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they're not angry because they're expressing it. It's everybody else who's got the problem.
Mm.
What is that doing to relationships?
Mm.
Um, so it's very, again, everything is different. Now you see that why I'm saying it's the complexity of it. I can
Mm-hmm.
never predict how many sessions anyone's going to need.
Well, okay, so it makes me think of this thing that I talk to my students about a lot, which is that any because I get there's something called noise in computer programming, which is when you look at data and there's a bunch of data that doesn't apply to the equation that you're dealing with. It's called noise, and I think a chart is full of noise. Like you can look over there and be like, "Oh, there's this there. I don't know what to look at." Like, and students get overwhelmed, and I think listening to you, I almost got overwhelmed with the complexity of what to do in each case, but just like doctors, we deal with one case at a time. And you have to look at, first of all, so I was given this equation. I'm like, what is the inquiry or what is the issue or the symptoms or whatever? Then what's the data of the chart? And then what's the person that you're talking to? Are they a child? Are they adult? Do they know astrology? All this kind of thing. So there's this like formula I give them. Now that's not the only formula. That's just an idea. But I see what you're saying is like it really depends on XYZ, like who's around the person, or you can even like break it down into like there's the genetics, culture, climate, and then the chart. Like, what's the climate that is surrounding the person with the Mars problem? Like so. I feel like there's a lot of ways to deconstruct their development and say why is this an issue. And I really like that about your work, which is you're really deconstructing a lot about the issue and then getting to the heart of like how can I help. But don't you think it really comes down to what is the inquiry, what is the problem? You can't just say I would remedy this Mars in this way because, well, we don't know what is the symptomology presenting. So do you kind of go like symptoms and what's presenting first, or?
Exactly. So you first of all, what's the client asking for help with? Okay, that's the fundamental thing. They're
Mhm.
coming and they are, let's say it's a relationship issue where they have a pattern of keeping partners at a distance, and now they've realized that actually all these relationships that they're grieving for, they have played a major part. They're not the victims here. That there is something, because every one of their partners has said the same thing. And I'm actually working with somebody with this very thing, where the feedback from ex-partners is pretty much the same.
Mhm. Mhm.
And she's stepped back and gone, huh, they're right.
Mhm.
So I need to understand why I do this.
Mhm.
And so she's come with the question, I need, why do I do this? This is the problem. I need the why. And then I need the remedy, which would be I need to address the feelings of fear that are making me want to keep them at bay, even though I really want to be in this relationship and I really am quite, I do love them.
Mhm.
So what's stopping me from giving them space in my life that allows them to feel like I actually want them in my life? Because I've realized I'm I'm inviting them in and then keeping them at a distance. They're not letting them in.
Mhm. Yeah, interesting.
So then, and that's the thing. And then, the chart can help me see why. And then I can ask the questions I need to be asking to get her to see why. And then we can work together to go to that sensitizing event or a series of events. In this case, a number of things happened when she was little, which she perceived as abandonment. They weren't, it was death. They
Mhm.
were. deaths and there was grieving. So the fear of loss, which is very clearly in the chart that there was loss. So, that fear of loss is huge. She doesn't want to go to that pain again.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to address that together to
Mm-hmm.
help her move beyond and take that risk again.
Interesting. Okay, well, we only have 2 minutes, and I know that you have somewhere to be. So, let's wrap up. And the first question in how can people get a hold of you is: can you hypnotize people on Zoom?
Yeah, can you
Yeah,
believe that? But yes. And
yeah.
when I was training, I remember my teacher saying that, sometimes he has been called to help people on the phone because it's like an emergency. And I thought, never. But I am doing it online, and that's a joyous thing because all we need is to be able to see each other, really,
Mm,
and you to be in a quiet and space where you feel safe. That's it.
interesting. Okay, so if people want to get work with you for either astrology or hypnosis, how can they get to you?
So my websites are lifeastrologer.com and lifehypnosis.net.
Okay, hypnosis.net. Okay. And okay, so that's how people find you. Are you on social medias?
I am. You can also find me on Facebook, Ana Isabel, and you can find me on Instagram, either Life Hypnosis or Life Astrologer. And you can also find me on Substack, Ana Isabel,
Okay, wait. Instagram is life hypnosis.
or Life Astrologer.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad we got to spend this time together to get to know each other a little bit more. Are you going to Norwalk or UAC?
No.
Okay, so I won't be seeing you there. All right. Well, if you ever want to come hang out at the Moira Press, you're always welcome. We have a Discord server, and it's so great to meet you, Anna.
Thank you so much for your time today. It's
All right.
lovely to be able to talk about my work. I love it so.
Yes, it's fascinating work, and you never know. I might see you for some hypnosis because I'm susceptible. All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.